Okay, so it's 2 o'clock, so I propose that we start. So welcome you all to the February session of the GLO Virtual Seminar Series. We are very happy today to have Marco Bertoni from the University of Padua presenting his paper on entitled Policy Impacts Are in the Eye of the Beholder, Experimental Evidence from Structural Reforms in Italy. Marco is I see that many people are joining now. Marco is very happy to take questions along the presentation. So if you want to ask a question, please just unmute yourself and directly ask it. I think this is the best way to do this. So Marco, you have 1 hour including questions, so the floor is yours.
All right. Thanks a lot, Viola, for the invitation. I think this is the activity I'm undertaking under this GLO network, and it's a pleasure to have joined these networks. Thanks for having me. So today I'll present some brand new and joint work with Paolo, Falco, Luigi, Guiso, Tullio, Jappelli, and Roberto Nisticò. This was sponsored by the Next Generation PNRR project in Italy, and it's about structural reforms. So let me just hide a bit of Zoom. I will not check the chat, so just feel free to speak up if you have questions. So this paper is about policy reform and what people think they do. Okay, so in Europe and in many countries over the world, over the last, let's say, 30 years, budgetary pressure and other considerations have led societies, politicians to implement many reforms. I mean, part of it, as I said, was due to public debt expanding, etc., the need to consolidate public budgets, and part of it was also to undo the effects of these reforms that have been driven by fiscal consideration in order to gain, political support. But in general, over the last 30 years, we have been observing a lot of structural reforms going on in many aspects of the economy, from the labor market to taxation to law and many aspects of our institutional systems. And in polarized societies like the ones we're living in right now, the policy debates are increasingly driven by ideology and scientific evidence. Okay, so we hear politicians talking, and the phenomenon of populism has been exacerbating this a bit, about reforms without really bringing in the debate scientific evidence, but mostly relying on their own ideology. And this has probably also influenced the support that these policies have been gaining or losing over time among the population. Okay. Italy, which is the country we are studying, is no exception to this. And the debate over pivotal structural reform have been salient and at the same time very polarized. I mean, I think you've all seen at some stage a picture of Matteo Salvini shouting something or having something written on his jumpers, okay? And several aspects have been all over the media: immigration policy, protection, pensions, basic incomes. And, the media have contributed not only to report about this, but also debate, or at least that's our impression of this. So we think this is a good context to test at the same time misperception about what these policies do, and to study how learning even from good scientific evidence can be biased depending on the messenger, so depending on the media. Okay, so this is what we're going to do in this project. We're trying to answer to a few research questions. Okay, what is it, what are the beliefs that people have about some relevant economic policy and their impacts? Okay, are the beliefs about policy impacts consistent with scientific evidence? And then, in this paper, is what people do when they're provided with information, okay? And there is a large literature on this, to which we want to contribute by bringing more evidence on new policies. So do people update beliefs of scientific evidence? This is about information in a sense. But then the key innovation of this paper is to understand, whether the updating that people do after receiving scientific information depends on the political alignment of/with the source of this information. So this is what we're gonna try and do today, okay? What we did, we conducted a survey experiment within a large representative sample of the general population in Italy, in a survey that is among, the gold standards of surveys that we can think of. And within this survey experiment, we randomly provided evidence on the impacts of some reforms that have taken in place in Italy over the last, let's say, decade. Okay. And in providing evidence, we randomly attached different news outlets to the same scientific evidence. Okay, so we're gonna report some evidence neutrally, so just tell you what science has to say about the impacts of policy, or by showing the policy as endorsed by a left-wing or a right-wing news outlet. Okay. Let me anticipate that all of this is non-deceptive, okay? So the policies are real, the studies analyzing them are real, and the media article reporting them are real. So we are doing nothing that exists. We just report some evidence. And then what we do, after providing the evidence, we estimate treatment effects on people's beliefs about these policy impacts, okay? So contribute to the literature. We contribute to two main streams of literature. The first one is about what people think about policy effects. Okay, what people think policies do. We analyze. There is quite an extended literature on this, covering several domains. Okay, and we, including immigration, pensions, and basic income. And what we do is to show that exposure to scientific evidence changes beliefs about the impacts of several structural reforms. So we expand the set of policies, and we bring evidence which is people to some numbers of stylized facts about the phenomenon underlying this, but really on the science behind the policy effects. Okay, and then probably the most salient contribution is to science to study unbiased, because that's the result we're going to have, belief updating. Literature spanning from political science to economics and a bit psychology too, that deals with how people tend to learn and update beliefs in different ways depending on the message, depending on the reliability and credibility which one has on the messenger or about the messenger. Okay. And in this paper, what we show is that belief updating based on scientific evidence does not depend on the political leaning of and the alignment with, I would say, the news source. Okay, so in a sense, we shed some positive light on discourse about media bias. In a sense, if the media were just to report, to do what the media should be supposed to do, so a messenger more than a bearer of ideological content, then what we have is that updating works and people understand from about the impacts of these policies. Okay, right. So I shall start. To dig into the details of what we do and how we frame this. Unless there are no questions, I will proceed and continue. Yes. Right. So what's the framework we use to think about this? The framework is a simple model of belief updating, okay, where the source, so the messenger, could be heterogeneous, okay? So we are studying here policy effectiveness, and we think individuals have prior beliefs about policy effectiveness. Okay, the effects of a policy, how large they are, what's the sign, etc. And then what happens is that they observe a signal, which in our scientific evidence about true effectiveness of this policy. Okay. So true effectiveness is data, and we have a signal which comes with some noise around data. Okay, I assume that J is the information source, and there are many information sources that individuals can receive. Okay, And here, the key parameter here is sigma j, which is the variance of this noise term here, okay? We assume that the news being reported is unbiased about the true effectiveness, okay? Of course, the model could be extended to include this, but for the time being, we care about, since we want to study reporting of scientific evidence, which should be unbiased, okay? Let's start with a model where there is no bias, and all that matters is the variability, the credibility, in a sense, of this, okay? Of this signal. And our hypothesis here, what we want to understand is whether the political alignment with the source, okay, reduces sigma. If you have receiving a news from a source which is aligned with your political beliefs, in a sense, okay, you tend to think this is more reliable, so you attach lower variance to this signal, okay? What happens is that agents update their beliefs using simple Bayesian updating, and if you follow the Bayes rule, what you get is that the posterior belief about the effects of this policy weighted average of your prior and the signal, where the smaller is the variance of this, the stronger is the updating. Okay. So the idea here is that agents are going to update beliefs more strongly when signals come from aligned and those more reliable sources. And in a sense, this is what we're going to try and bring to the data. Again, the model could be extended and deliver strong, more rich predictions, but for the time being and for the exercise I'm gonna report about, in a sense, this is all we need. Okay. Now, data. Data come from a new survey that was started by our co-authors, Luigi and Tullio, which is called ISCE, which is the Italian Survey of Consumer Expectations. Okay, it was funded by NextGenEU. Its target population is the Italian residents aged 18 to 75, and the sampling frame is such that this is drawn from Doxa's online panel. Doxa is a survey agency which has this very big online panel. ISCE is run on around 5,000 respondents, okay, with computer-assisted web interviews, okay. The beauty of ISCE is that it has a very carefully designed stratified random sample coverage, both in terms of demographics, gender, age, geographic area, education, what if and what not, but also geography. Okay, it covers more than roughly 2,000 municipalities. I won't say that it is nationally representative, but it's close to that. Okay. Also adopt post-stratification weights to reach ISTAT, which is the National Statistical Institute benchmarks on population counts. Okay. This is a relatively high frequency survey because it was conducted quarterly since 2 years ago, and now 8 waves have been collected. The response rate with respect to the original framework is pretty high for this type of survey, which is 40%. Retention rate, so once you're in the panel, it's close to 80% or higher, okay? This is an incentivized survey, okay, that combines both personal incentives and charity donations. Are incentivized to take part in the survey, okay? I mean, if you want to look at the representativeness of the survey in comparison with the survey of household income and wealth run by the Bank of I would say that the ISCE is doing pretty well. I mean, most characteristics are rather comparable to the other survey, which is also an important Italian survey. Probably we are cutting a population which is slightly poorer than the sheep. But besides that, I would say that this is done using state-of-the-art survey methodologies. Okay. So how does ISCE work? There are core and rotating section. So the core lasts 12 minutes and is repeated each wave, and there are then special and experimental modules that vary by wave. Okay, it inquires people about their demographics, income, consumption, and expectations. Okay, there are special modules on some risk perceptions. Okay. And survey experiments. Okay, we follow in this last category. Okay, so during the wave 7, which was run in May last year, we designed a module on policy effectiveness, okay, which does exactly what I tried to describe in the beginning. We've decided to investigate 4 controversial, I would say, at least very debated policies, dwelling on important outcomes. Okay, these topics, these policies deal with relevant topics in, I would say, labor and population economics, including early retirement. Okay, so Italy is famous for policies that have brought up and up and up and up the retirement age. But recently there was a policy that tried to push it down, which was called Quota 100. Okay, which tried to have allow people to retire early if they had 62 years of age and 38 years of contribution to a 100 quota. Okay. And we study whether, this sort of intergenerational exchange in jobs took place, so whether it increased employment, okay, or not. Then we study migrant regularization, okay, a policy that has been going on for a while in Italy called Decreto Flussi, whereby every year employers are allowed to, open up employment contracts which will grant entry permits to workers. And we ask ourselves whether being regularized as a worker reduces crime committed migrants. Then we study employment protection legislation, a big policy that took place in 2015 under the Renzi government, which is called the Jobs Act, which substantially increased employment protection and introduced these graded security contracts. And we ask ourselves, what we inquire people about is whether it generated employment. Okay. The last policy is a very debated one called Reddito di Cittadinanza, people's income, and it's about giving people a guaranteed minimum income. It was one of the policies introduced by the five-star movements, and we asked people whether it hampered labor supply. Okay, so these are the 4 policies we are going to be dealing with, and these are very salient policies in Italy. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is to report on how frequently these policies were being mentioned in the media. So this is a Google search searching for news over the last 20 years in Italy. Okay, I'm using a benchmark here, which is the term politics. It's the orange line you see here. This is politics, okay? It's been going on more or less steadily over time. And, in the graph, I'm reporting the popularity of the searches in Google for politics, okay, as a sort of anchor. Italians love politics, food, and soccer, so politics seem the most appropriate to put here as an anchor, okay? And then the 4 policies are also reported. You have Quota 100, the Jobs Act, and the flux, the migrants policy, okay? And you see, sometimes Reddito di Cittadinanza and the other policies even score higher search records than the politics, which is an important topic in Italy, okay? Clearly, the interest comes and goes over time, but these are policies that have been in the news, okay, and which it has been reported many times over the last, let's say, consistently over the last decade, okay? So these are the policies we study, and how does our experiment work? So for each of these policies, we identify available scientific evidence on the impacts, okay? And we are pretty careful at finding okay, and reports papers that have been cited by newspapers, okay? So we carefully searched, and this was painstaking, I have to say, the media in Italy to find evidence about these policies that was coming from scientific articles and was reported by newspapers of different political leaning. Okay, so this is entirely non-deceptive. Everything we do exists in reality, and what we do is to report these things to people. And we have 4 treatments and randomly attached to the 4 policies. So every person in our survey responded to a question, okay, on beliefs of these policies. So they have 4 questions and report belief on each policy. The order of the policies they report about is random, okay? And also the treatment they are exposed to for each policy is random, okay? So some people for a policy see no scientific evidence. Some people see scientific evidence without naming a specific news outlet. Some people see scientific evidence with a left-leaning news outlet. And finally, they see a right-leaning news outlet reporting the policy. Okay. So in total, we have 16 groups, depending on the policy order and the treatment matched with the policy. So everybody sees at least once one of these, and everybody sees these 4 policies in a different order. Okay?
Marco?
Yes.
Marco? And how do you define scientific evidence, and how do we know that it's really scientific evidence and is not? So because I assume it's not that you show them a...
Can I show you what we do?
Yeah.
And then if it's not clear, I'll tell you. So this is an example, okay? It's about the immigration policy and crime, okay? So this is what we tell them. The Decreto Flussi, first we start by telling them what the policy is about, just in case they didn't know, okay? Decreto Flussi sets each year a maximum quota of legal work permits for foreign workers assigned on a first-come, first-served basis, okay? And applications are accepted as reached. After its introduction, we state that the debate emerged on its impact in regulating labor immigration and the crime rate among immigrants. Okay? Now, the 4 treatments go like this then. Somebody gets no evidence. Okay? Somebody gets evidence that goes like this. Cited by various news outlets, a study by Bocconi University estimated that the crime rate among legalized immigrants was halved compared to the crime rate among immigrants who were not legal. The quota had already been reached. Okay? This same sentence then is reported in the other group as cited by La Repubblica and other news outlets, or as cited by Il Giornale and other news outlets. La Repubblica is famously left-wing and Il Giornale famously right-wing. Okay? We repeat this stuff for all the 4 policies. Okay? 3 other articles reporting about the 3 other policies. Okay? So this is what we do, basically. And I mean, just to go back, the evidence is that Quota 100 did not increase employment, overall employment, so there was not enough separation between young and old workers. The migrant regularization reduced crime. That employment protection increased overall employment, so between and exit flows, the balance is positive. And the guaranteed minimum income did not decrease the labor supply of the percipients. Okay, these are all available papers, and I can report. Okay. Then, as I said, the news are real. Everything is non-deceptive. This is the for this policy here. The paper, you probably all know about this paper. It's an American Economic Review paper by Paolo Pinotti. Okay, clicking on Evan Store. And, you know, it was reported in the news in Italy. We don't report the news articles, but we report the study. Right. So what are the outcomes? We ask them, I mean, in a large survey, we also ask them this. So we ask them whether, in their opinion, how did the legal status acquisition impact the crime rate among immigrants? And we ask about the sign of the impact. Okay, we don't ask them about magnitude because this was too cognitively demanding for us, in our opinion. Okay, so we asked them about the sign. Probably we could have gained, you know, more information by asking the magnitude and probabilistic reporting on different magnitudes, but we deemed this as too demanding. How do you fix the support? How do you set, you know, if you want to ask it on a banded scale, how do you do? So in a beam scale, how do you do that? So we decided to go for this. Either it increased crime, so legal immigrants commit more crimes than illegal ones. Unchanged, legalized immigrants commit as many crimes as illegal ones, or it decreased. Legalizing immigrants then makes them commit less crime than illegal ones. Okay? Question we ask for each policy. And then we inquire them about the accuracy of their beliefs understand whether the belief gets more precise after this. So we ask whether on a scale from 0 to 100, how sure they are in response to Q1. Okay. So basically, this is our belief module. Any question before I move to the results? Right.
So you don't, sorry. You don't give her the opportunity to say don't know. They have to give an answer.
Yes, because this is their beliefs. So if they don't know, they're going to say that the accuracy that they have is 0. Okay. How sure are you? I'm not sure at all. They're going to say 0. Okay. I mean, putting a don't know here would have complicated the analysis a lot. So we thought, let's force them to pick, and then we ask them no sure. So, let's start here. This is basically the results slide, okay? But let me unpack this bit by bit, okay? So what does this report? It's the 4 policies we are inquiring them about, okay? And these are the beliefs, okay? So for instance, let's start by considering the blue bars controls, okay? Those who don't get any information, okay? So what we see here about quota 100, this reform, what do people think? Well, 30% think that employment fell in response to the introduction. 50%, more or less, slightly more than 50%, thought that it stayed flat. So there was sort of one-to-one substitution between senior workers retiring and junior workers hired. And a 15% think that overall employment went up. So there was this magic trick whereby one senior employment retiring led to the creation of more than one job for the others. Okay. So what happens when we provide about the scientific evidence on this policy, which reports that actually employment did not increase? They don't change their mind very much. Okay, this is the policy where we get less effects. Okay, we see effects on the down here, but less so on the others. Okay, probably those who were convinced about this, they already knew, and the others did not bother updating their beliefs. Okay, how about the other policies? Let's look at the FLUSI, immigrant legalization and immigrants crime. Reports here of the control group in blue, they see no evidence, and what do they report? Well, the majority thinks that crime, when you legalize immigrant status, the crime is unchanged. There's a sharp quasi-consideration who thinks that crime goes up. Okay, somehow getting legal status makes you commit more crime. And the 15-18% thinks that crime went down. When we provide them with the information, okay, they react substantially and think that crime goes down, and from both groups to down. Okay. How about the Jobs Act, so employment protection? Well, most people think that either employment went down as the decrease of employment protection, or it stayed flat. Okay, few think that it went up, but when you provide people with information, okay, then the treated and the control differ, and the treated group report is most likely to report that overall employment went up. Okay. How about people's income? So the basic income scheme here, most people really think that those who are beneficiaries of this policy, they decrease labor supply, okay, or that labor supply stays flat, okay. Very few think that labor supply went up, okay. When we provide them with the information, which is that basically labor supply did not go down, okay, what they do is to move basically from down to flat. So somehow they update beliefs on these two, okay? So overall, to wrap it up, this is what we get, okay? So what's the share of people? This is the effects on the share of people holding evidence-consistent beliefs, okay? So beliefs that are consistent with the evidence from scientific work that we provide, okay? What do we find? We find that overall, beliefs go in the direction of improving, okay, so becoming more consistent with the evidence, okay, this increase is significant for 3 out of 4 policies. And I mean, randomization here was done by a computer, and I don't have here the reports of the balancing tests, but trust me, it worked really well. And, you know, when we include or exclude covariates in the analysis, it doesn't really change a thing, okay? It was done all randomly, and it worked very well, okay? So overall, we feel like providing information helped people to get more accurate, more consistent beliefs with respect to what scientific evidence tells us. Okay, this was in a sense to warm up. Then you know the juice of the paper is about the politics. Okay, what we want to know here is how updating depends on alignment and the political alignment of newspapers. Okay, and how the two match. Okay. So in the survey, there was a question asking people to report on their political orientation, and this one pie graph, I'm not a big fan of pie graphs, but this was easy to do, so I decided to go for this. A third of the population report being center, left, and right. A third of the population reporting left, a third of the population reporting being right, and 10% being center. And a third of the population either denied to report their opinion or said that they have no orientation. Okay, of course, it would have been nice to ask about the political party they voted for, but this would have been probably too disclosive, and people have refused to do that. So I mean, the survey asked political alignment like this. Okay. Importantly, we also asked them to report on the alignment of the newspapers that we use in the okay, and the 4 newspapers we report articles from are La Repubblica, Il Fatto Quotidiano, Sole 24 Ore, and Il Giornale. Okay, so people were asked to report on the edition of this journal, and this is how it went. Okay, so roughly a fourth say that they don't know the political orientation of paper. This is all surprising. I mean, many people don't read the newspapers, and among the youth, probably there's not much reading. And a consistent but depending on the journal share also reports that they're not aligned. Okay, it's interesting to see, and this is consistent with the evidence that very few reported La Repubblica e Il Giornale, which are clearly politically aligned, are not aligned, and most so the mostly reported as being not aligned is Il Sole 24 Ore, which is a newspaper that reports about you know, economics and finance and is less politically oriented, still right-leaning a bit. Okay, so when then you know. The others could report on a 1 to 7 scale of rightism, and consistently with beliefs, general beliefs, Il Giornale is the most right-leaning, followed by Il Sole 24 Ore, and then Il Fatto Quotidiano and La Repubblica. Okay, so there is a clear ordering here of newspapers in the terms of left to right. Okay, so now the piece of evidence which I need to show is how you know, belief updating depends on the source of the information. Okay, so what am I reporting here? These are the same effects on evidence-consistent beliefs I reported before by outlet alignment. Okay, so this is the basic, just reporting the information with no outlet, and as you see, this is exactly consistent with the picture I showed you before. Quota 100 is positive but not significant, and the other 3, you know, increases the share of people that report evidence-consistent beliefs. Then these other 2 lines here report about the interaction effects, okay, depending on the political alignment leaning of the source, okay? And you see these are zeros, okay? These are statistical and rather precisely estimated zeros, okay? And we see that the messenger's alignment bears no additional meaning on top of the information reported by the media. Okay, so we find no effect of the political orientation of the newspaper. Okay, this was interesting, but how about the interaction between the alignment of the person and of the media? Okay, here I'm going to focus on the people who report either a right or a left political alignment. So these people here, okay? And I'm going to check whether, you know, the outlet is aligned with them or not. Again, no effect, Okay, so alignment with the news bears no effect. Okay. Well, maybe this could be due to the fact that some people actually don't know the alignment of the newspaper. So maybe what I'm getting here is a zero effect due to the fact that since I know their own alignment, I can also, not only their own alignment, but also whether they reported on the alignment of the newspaper or not, I can also focus only on the sample who report an alignment of the outlet. And if anything, here I get effects that are even interaction effects that are even closer to zero. Okay, so again, no effect on this. Well, okay. But then, these are average alignments, like La Repubblica is left-wing and Il Giornale is right-wing. But what if I'm super left-wing and I think Repubblica is already too right-wing for me? When I can use the subjective alignment that people report with the newspaper. Action terms are statistically indistinguishable from zero. Here I lose power a bit because I need to shrink the sample, but still the effects are significant to 10% range, the main effects, and the others are not statistically different from zero, and I would say close to zero too. Okay? Right. So let's go back to the model. In the model, what I had was that what was driving the updating, okay, was outlet reliability, okay, that sigma j term which I had, the sigma j that determines the updating. And for the updating to be different, it needs to be heterogeneous depending on the source, okay? So we asked people from 1 to 10 to tell us how reliable that is corresponding to real facts and data they consider the news reported by these newspapers, okay? The general result that we see here is that on average, people do report and believe that these outlets report reliably, okay? If anything, we see that the left wing tend to report a bit that Il Giornale, which is a right-wing journal, right-leaning journal, is less reliable. And on the other hand, those right wings tend to report that Repubblica is less reliable. But these are not stark differences overall, okay? They seem to be, well-established journals that people tend to believe in, maybe by a short margin, small margin. Okay, so this squares together well with the findings stating that when the media are reported to be reliable and report reliable news, updating shouldn't depend on the media source. Okay, crappy media maybe worked in a different way, but if the sources are reliable, the orientation is less relevant to report on this. Okay, so overall, I think I'm already more. Yes, I can show you some more results because I have a bit more time. But the key findings, I would summarize them by saying that people's beliefs about impacts of structural reform are largely inconsistent with the evidence. This is what I showed you with the blue columns. Okay, many people have beliefs which are very off. Okay, let's think about this myth about immigrants and crime, whereby the blue bar here is that 30% people think that legalizing immigrants brings their crime. Okay. It's far off. Okay. But the good news is that providing scientific evidence tends to lead to belief alignment. Okay. And also the good news is that science tends to penetrate the media bias. So the political alignment of people and with media sources is not a primary driver of these impacts. Okay. Basically, this is what I had to present. But since we have a bit more time, maybe I can show you something more. Like this. This is the effect on belief accuracy. These CDFs, empirical CDFs, the blue is those who don't receive information, and the red is those who receive information. And as you see, in general, the red one, the red one stays consistently to the right of the blue one. Okay, so when you receive information, you tend to believe to have more accurate beliefs, to perceive that your beliefs are more accurate. Okay, so even in the case here with Quattrocento, where the pension reform, the beliefs didn't change in mean, they got more accurate after receiving information. Okay, this is the true in 3 out of 4 cases. In this one, we don't get significant results. So belief accuracy didn't change much. Okay. And then what? Heterogeneous effects. So this is an RCT, so we try to use some machine learning stuff to estimate heterogeneous effects. These are densities of conditional average treatment effects estimated via generalized random forests. Okay, so basically this machinery partitions the okay, depending on their observables in groups by trying to maximize the size of the difference in the treatment effect across groups. Okay, and in this way, it creates a way to estimate treatment effects at, I would say, predict treatment effects at the individual level. And this is a way to summarize the heterogeneity that we get. And as you see, there's very little heterogeneity. Okay, so for 3 out of 4 policies, the sign is consistent throughout the predicted support of the treatment effect. Okay, so you see that everybody is estimated to have their evidence consistent beliefs. Just with quotacento, we see something going into both signs, but overall, these are small effects. Okay, so there's not much heterogeneity to explain. Apparently, the news spread throughout the population, and it's really hard to find characteristics that help predicting this. And in fact, when we estimate heterogeneous treatment effects using sample splits, we don't find many sample splits where you see odd signs or stuff like this. The beliefs seem to improve generally throughout the population. Okay. And I've done the same with the political thing. It doesn't change. It doesn't really change much. This is another way to show the same thing with the composite gap in the cates. But more or less, it's the same. The gaps are small. Okay. Right. So that's all I had today. There's plenty of time for questions. This is preliminary work in progress. So every comment is more than welcome. We cannot gather more data, but maybe we can get some suggestions on what to do better and how to improve the framing and the analysis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So are there any questions? I have a couple myself, so but
Thank you.
I want to leave the floor to others if there are questions. Otherwise, okay, let me start with mine. So, well, I know that you cannot gather more data, but my first question was, why did you choose those newspapers? Because in the end, indeed, as you showed at the end, like people consider them relatively reliable in general, but you could have gone for like more radical ones, say to the right and to the left, right? And that maybe would have
Yeah,
made
this
more
was
of a difference, right? When if you choose Manifesto instead of Repubblica, for example.
yeah, the trouble is the manifesto didn't report on these policies,
Yeah.
didn't report evidence on these policies. So saying the manifesto has reported the evidence would have been deceptive, and we didn't want to do that. Then manifesto, is a marginal source of probably, I don't know. We needed support in order not to do it in a deceptive way, existing support. And it would have been, probably people would have not believed Manifesto reporting this thing, because Manifesto then is not about reporting news, but about commenting or something like this. I don't know. We tried to, so that's what guided us in our research design. We wanted to be non-deceptive, so we wanted to find real articles reporting about this. If the media is about reporting the news first things first, then that's what we wanted to gather. It was not easy to find this. For policies, we need scientific evidence. We needed both left and right leaning outlets reporting on the same article. Okay, because that was the main requirement for this to be believable. And yeah, that's it. But yeah, I think, maybe, reporting on marginal commenters from the right or from the left would have had a stronger impact, but then, probably you wouldn't trust the news at all. So,
No, yeah, no, I understand. And then, because the other thing, because I asked you about they don't know at the beginning, and then when you show the graphs, except for the last policy, actually most people go to the middle, so we say don't no change or something, and then that could actually indicate that they don't know, right? So,
Yeah.
and did you check the accuracy? Because I mean, if I don't know, I'm not going to say up or down. I'm going to say,
So
say
what we
pro
did
control.
was to run regressions at the individual level, okay,
Yeah.
where we had these accuracy questions together with a person effect. And we did the same with the reports and the person fixed effect. Okay, so the person fixed effect explains 50% of this variation, meaning that there is genuine variation across the four policies. It's not entirely explained by a person fixed effect. It's neither is it entirely explained by a policy fixed effect. Okay, so it's a combination of person and policy that still has a lot of variation in that. So that's my best answer to that, I think. But of course, you are worried. I mean, even if you look at the graphs here, they don't report zero accuracy. Okay, this is a CDF, so the vertical gaps between 2 points indicates the probability mass at a given point, which in this case is discrete support. So you see that 50 is a focal point, and so is 100. Okay, so many people are very sure, or they say 50-50. Okay, but there are many people who report zero accuracy on their beliefs. Okay, thank you.
Then I had one last point.
Go.
So yeah, because you, so I think this also this thing. So I mean, I don't know, I'm not an expert in the kind of in in the lecture in the literature in the political science, but this distinction between right and left. So nowadays, for example, there are many people who are, for example, economically to the right, more socially to the left, for example.
Social liberal.
Yeah, exactly. So, like if I just say I'm the right or the left is a bit,
Yeah.
uh,
Unfortunately, that was available in the survey. So they had
yeah,
already
because
asked this question in the first wave of the survey,
yeah.
and it would have been odd to ask again because then it makes a bit of chaos to people. So we decided to go for
But then
what
it
was
could
already
be,
available.
but maybe it depends on the policy, right? So migration and pension are not the
Yeah.
same thing, right? So,
Yeah. So apparently, at least this concern here, it really doesn't, because migration and pensions, you see that the updating does not really matter, or even migration and Jobs Act here, employment protection, it doesn't really depend. What really depends on individual slide here, unfortunately, but what really depends on political preferences, okay, is what determines what you report here in the control group. So we did some machine learning exercise here to predict, okay, which of these three beliefs you reported based on your individual characteristics. Okay, for instance, whether you report that immigrants leads to low, flat, or up crime, okay, without being provided information. Okay, and here the key predictor are political preferences. Okay, you see that basically the only predictor of these things are political preferences. Okay, so if you look at RDC, beneficiaries employment, if you're a right wing, you're most likely to say that this went down. Okay, and the same goes for the Jobs Act. If you're left wing, you say that employment went down, probably also because you lower quality employment. Okay, so political preference is an important driver of these beliefs, but they don't really matter, or they matter to a less extent for belief updating. Okay, this is all I can say about it from the data.
Okay,
All
thank you
right.
very much. Are there other questions from the audience? Don't be shy. You can just, in case, just unmute yourself and go for it. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, then I would like to thank you, Marco,
Thanks a
very much
lot.
for your very interesting presentation. And I'm going to see you all in a month, in March, for a new seminar. So thank you very much to Marco and for all of you for attending this session.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
I suppose, where is that?